on a mission to not sure where, somewhere invisible out there. Somewhere invisible out there, I see Alex Gray's Theologue again. Wherever that is. Welcome back, Artist Journal, January 4th, 2025. Broadcasting from somewhere deep out there in the grid. In that spiritual grid. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. Welcome back and good morning once again. We are on a 3-day streak here. Kind of exciting. I was telling someone messaged me and said, I like the shorter format. It's just easier to consume, and I feel the same way. And as I said to that person, I feel like I'm getting back to the roots of the show. And so it's kind of fun to reinvent yourself, reinvent the show. So it continues. So in the spirit of keeping things short, I was thinking to myself very quickly, like when I was a kid, when I went to school, like it was just like, oh, how am I going to make this like a 4,000 word paper? Like that's it seemed like the most titanic task. How ironic, all these years later, like the real challenge is keeping it brief. It's something to be said for that. Like maybe we shouldn't be asking kids to do 4,000 words because maybe they don't have 4,000 words of things to say. But who knows? Anyways, I'm back to Hermippe. This is from a few weeks ago, but I didn't want to miss it. I was going through my Instagram bookmarks, which is why you have this kind of odd screenshot here. This is quite spectacular. There's something kind of... of course, now, for those that don't know, Hermippe pixel art, Japanese pixel artist, does a lot of physical work too. We've been kind of looking at Hermippe the last few weeks, couple of months, marveling over the originality, uses a phone, etc. Also uses different printing techniques. And, Riso, was it linocut, wood block, however you want to put it, and traveling through the mediums. Using pixel art, you might say, as the primary, for lack of a better term, like visual modality. For lack of better words here, we are live. It's a recording, but I am live. This is one take, my friends. So here, what do we have? And we can zoom in. I have the actual Instagram where they zoom in. But first of all, again, taking us to the reptilian, and we're going to come back to the reptilian moment, as I like to call it here. There's something quite spectacular about this. And I think put it this way, there's something almost kind of Picasso-esque, modernist canvas about it, and I think it's because it's on a canvas. And it looks like to me that probably this is some sort of pixel art that kind of maybe an effect has been put on it. I think there were I only showed it on one show where it seemed like Hermippe was using some RGB type, almost like glitch-like filters where it kind of almost makes things kind of fuzzy a little bit. You see how stretches things out a little bit. Interesting decision. And it looks like that was printed, perhaps blue on blue, with a touch of red in there, if you can see that. And we're going to have close-ups in a second. And then cut up and then made as a kind of composition. And I have to say, Hermippe is becoming, frankly, one of the most interesting artists in the world, is how I feel about Hermippe's work. And I say it with some reluctance because it's available and I don't think it's expensive, so my issue is I don't really, maybe I'll order a Hermippe physical just to have one. But I'm moving around, probably have to move apartments. I'm not looking in October. I'm not looking to carry more things around. I love digital. As I tell people, clothes and technology, that's all I want to buy in terms of material things. Otherwise, I want it all to be digital. But all to say, I think, our little art consultation here, there you go. You're welcome. So again, this is where I took the screenshot from, just so we can make it large for the opening image here. Now let's look at the translation here. a little bit too. So Komeito Art Center, they seem to be big supporters of Hermippe. Finally, the last day of Hermippe's solo exhibition, Swing By. Kind of light. Limited time prints are still open until today. Now, another thing I want to point out here is the signature. Let's actually go back. Like this kind of stuff here is not to be underestimated, I dare say. There's some really smart design decisions being made here, I would argue. And even just the fact that this looks like it's a canvas, I'm not positive on that. But the mark here, it looks like a stretched canvas, which gives you all these little artifacts. If you can see there, the little shadow here. This all adds up. And here, a beautiful graphite pencil, kind of like, again, another perfect choice. Balancing out, one could argue, or helping finish the composition. It's an important, and it's kind of, you know how I like to discuss the superficialities oftentimes, love the margin on that work. It's because this stuff is often, I would argue, crucial to the actual compositions of artworks. And I would argue the signature is another element that is often underappreciated in terms of what it does for the visual composition, the resolution of the image, so in the sense of it being resolved. Imagine this without, the signature. Like, it would feel like it's just missing. It's not as resolved as it is now, where it's like, you have the stamp. This is it. This is done. Let's look at some of the close-ups here. So can you see that? The kind of what it looks like, the red, right? Hermippe was doing some experimentation, so I'm assuming, with this kind of almost like a glitch-like filter with the pixel art. Interesting combination. And here you see up close, this does look like Rizzo. If I had to guess here, and of course, you see the print here. I think we're pretty sure this is Rizzo, cut up, and then done kind of collage style as if it's 1914. Picasso Braque. And there's a lot going on here. Again, you look at the digital that's being, the RGB with the pixel art, this wavy pixel art. It's kind of being transformed a little bit, almost smudged, right? Blue on blue, and then printed, and then cut, and then put on a canvas. Traveling through the mediums, traveling through effects, they're like, and look at that, Hermippe, smartly, I guess it's the Komeito Art Center, seeing how beautiful this is. It looks like it's on wood, which is another, like, that's even more brilliant because it gives you more texture. It gives you an interesting background. Is this wood? It kind of looks like canvas from afar, but that looks like wood to me. You see the little knot there? You see the texture? That looks like wood. Even the way that the graphite holds on the bottom there. So, not sure. This looks like more of a canvas here, as you see with the shadow. And you see a whole other, experiment, so to speak. And there you have it, though. Rizzo cut up, digital work, printed in Rizzo, let's assume, cut up, and then rearranged, so to speak, into a composition on canvas. Some of the most exciting art in the world, I would argue. Now look at this, another clue. We see the wood, but this wood looks like it's painted white, doesn't it? Or at least it's white wood, however you want to put it. And there's Hermippe. You almost see the signature was erased. It looks like it was erased and redone. And I would argue, and as an artist, have you ever done that? I've done that, right? And I think this is just emphasizing the point, the importance of the signature as a component of the art piece, superficial as it might sound. Isn't that interesting? And again, when did we start? We saw, in a sense, it always has been. I mean, I think of Raphael, sometimes you'll see the name in the belt, or like the sash or whatever it is, the belt that goes across. So signature, the history of the signature in visual art is quite an interesting question, actually. Because I don't think we're going to look at Cimabue here in a second. Big show in Paris. Look at this. So more experimentation. This, I believe, silkscreen printing collage. Like, is this silkscreen? That would blow my mind. This kind of looks like Riso. Now, Riso is sometimes considered... Oh, there it is, Risograph. Yeah, this looks like Riso to me. Which is basically, for those that don't know what Riso is, it's like kind of considered cheap silk screening. You probably have a Riso printer in your city if you live in a city. And they often will give you like this book of colors combination. So, and then here you see how there's a dark blue and a lighter blue. And then they'll have like gradations. So you can do it the light blue to the dark blue because it's just more ink put in. But really, this is a 2-color composition, if I'm not mistaken. But then with different, or maybe there's like a third color snuck in here, but I don't think so. I think this is, I'm not sure if there's a third color in these clouds here, which would be pretty interesting. I guess we'll find out here. It's either 2 or 3. I think it's, now, because the question here is, here's an interesting, like, and again, you're getting to almost kind of like painting with Riso here. You have blue. You have this kind of neon orange here. What does this look like to you? This looks like the lightened version, so where the dots are spaced apart, because they'll give you these gradations that you can choose. This kind of looks like the blue on top of the neon. So it's almost like painting here with Riso, to a certain degree. Like, Hermippe really rewards, like, looking closer. Like, when you look closer, and there's something to be said for artists that when you look closer, another world opens up. Right? You know, as the saying, the expression goes, God is in the details, right? Now here, kind of a different approach. Like, and how was this printed, by the way? Like, was this printed on a box somehow? It looks that way. Like, interesting, right? Is this a shoebox? Beautiful details. So, I mean, these are, you know, we see, like, and just for a point of comparison, I say one of the most exciting artists in the world. As a point of comparison, Ai Weiwei is considered one of the most important artists in the world. We looked at some of the work by Ai Weiwei yesterday. He's doing some pixel art. Who'd you rather? Which one's, like, if you knew nothing about each artist, like, which one are you going to be jumping on as far as the work, right? So isn't that interesting? So, you know, continues to be very, very interesting over here. Here it is, and kind of like wonderful size too. I was talking about not wanting to collect too many physical things. And look at these Polaroids. Probably using a marker down here. Like, this is getting like, and for all I know, Hermippe is like a huge art star in Japan, for all I know. I don't know that, but he seems to be doing well. And here, again, this is cut up. Yeah, so we are also accepting orders for limited time prints. Very interesting. Look at this. So also traveling through mediums here, we have pixelation. We have, let's just see what it says here. We have rasterizing. I think we could call that rasterizing. Almost a feel of Polk here. Sigmar Polka. Test printing. Hermippe's solo exhibition Swing By limited time print event will be held from Friday, November 29th. You know, this is one color. This is one color. And so we see pixelation, we see print, we see digital combined into one image. And then, seemingly, this looks screen printed, doesn't it? This looks like a little thicker, but I'm not positive. Test printing. Not positive. Stunning work here. Another experiment, cutting the Riso into strips here and then changing basically just a simple idea, almost turning it into pixel art here on the edge. Yeah. Like, it's hard not to be excited by this work. A new collage piece was added today. The artist Hermippe, at least will be in the gallery tomorrow, December 1st. I think it's Hermippe. Just more. So this, like, and look at this modern coloring. These modern, you have modern pixelation. This modern, is this a one color print? I mean, did Hermippe simply buy like neon orange paper, and it's that simple? 2 colors, colored paper. We've discussed colored paper. way back. I think it was with Popple. Where's Popple? We need to make sure. I need to make sure Popple's covered here, in case Popple's been releasing stuff that I haven't seen. Just good documentation as well, right? So there's a lot to be excited about here. And finally, I mean, look at the. There's a lot to love here, and you know what else there is to love? This is, for the most part, not sure about this blue area here, but for the most part, these works are made on a phone and probably taken to the local Rezo place, probably a good one, and get made. Like, it's in a sense, you at home can do the same thing in terms of the tools that are available. This doesn't require some massive studio that you're paying $50,000 a month for with employees. And I'd argue Hermippe is probably outcompeting a lot of those, professional artists, so to speak, with staff in, places like Berlin and New York. Are they putting out with that kind of burn as exciting a work? So it just goes to show money, like in today's world, with Rezo, pixel art, this sort of stuff, you can do incredible things on a low budget. And look, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And just a wonderfully brilliant artist, so consumable, right? And finally, one more from Hermippe. And let's just see, I think this is a new one. A Protea flower, I chose this motif because it looks wild and powerful and resembles a snake's eyes. So you get the sense that Hermippe really they come together quickly, as we saw with the Santa Claus work. But, there's a lot of effort put in here and a lot of thought. And remember the Mixel style, I believe it was called, maybe MYXEL, which is this idea of using different sized pixels, because oftentimes pixel art will use just a universal pixel size. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So here we are, just yesterday's show. We're cruising. Thank you for the support and the comments. Let's see what happens here. Illusion T Soul. I met this lady who used to build whole cities out of bottle caps. I really enjoy the idea of impossible devices, fantastical functionality. Beautiful wording here, Illusion. You kind of want to interact with a bunch more of these as digital sculptures. Indeed, and that's a whole other thing. I was seeing on AI, I think Retro Manny here is going to mention, I'm really glad to see GLBs. And I've always been like, well, another software I have to learn with AI. It's like, can you make a GLB of this? And then I saw someone, I think this morning, I should have bookmarked that. It's like, oh, okay. I think I did actually, but I don't have it this show. So you can do it with AI now. If you're interested in making these GLBs, hilariously. Thank you for the comment. Omizo Paints, what is this, 2 episodes in a row? Well, welcome to 3. Thank you, Mr. Pocobelli. My absolute pleasure. Thank you for paying attention. And as I'm kind of going daily in my head here. I mean, there's going to be exceptions to this. But let's see. Tom Bombattle. Thanks, Adrian. My pleasure. Just a wonderful pixel artist. Tom Bombattle. Great to hear from you. Retro Manny. Nice. Got 2 episodes to catch up on in such a short space. Love it and definitely not complaining as long as I get my 2 cups of coffee to go with it. Also, really happy to see more attention on 3D and GLB specifically. There's plenty of talk about pixel art being the native digital art medium. And I wonder if this is overly stated. To be honest, but there's something, I think I've made the point. And I think to elaborate on what I think Retro Manny is saying here, this idea of, the pixel being the native unit, so to speak, of digital art. And in that respect, becoming, I think exactly as actually Manny is saying here, the native, the most elemental medium, one might say, of pixel art being the most elemental medium of the digital medium, or the most elemental genre of the digital medium. There's plenty of talk about pixel art being the native digital art medium, but can't forget the polygons are the three-dimensional equivalent of the pixel. It also allows for many disciplines to merge into one, like collage, montage of mediums with polygons as the canvas. Yeah, like you could put big pixels in there. Sometimes we see it, if I understand you right. Happy New Year. Can't wait to catch up on both episodes. Well, make it 3. Should you dare? Thank you, Retro Manny, for the comment. Awesome to hear from you, and Happy New Year. Ed Marola, Happy New Year. Awesome to hear from you. And Vinny Hagar, awesome to hear from you. Happy New Year to all. Also on X, heck, I would love to hear a discussion with you and Absurd Deity. Hope you can make it happen. It is in the works. We are in contact, so I am excited about that. Absurd Deity. Hello, Adrian. What a wonderful surprise to see a back-to-back artist journal drop into my YouTube feed. Thank you so much for doing this. It is my absolute pleasure. Thank you for watching. To think that only a few months ago I was too afraid to invest the time to watch even one of your episodes. Yet now I can't wait for each episode to drop and find myself impatiently pulling up older unseen episodes in between your current publication schedule. So I'm incredibly excited by this, and I really appreciate the support. You know, for all of the support here, it's still a fledgling enterprise here. So this kind of feedback makes me say, hey, maybe there's something here that I can really kind of take to another level. So here I am again, my friend, and thank you for the support. A massive collector, for those that don't know, on the Tezos blockchain. An artist as well, a patron of the arts, also on Rodeo. Jake Studios. Thank you always, Pocobelli. Hold a 30-second. So this brilliant work. It was a split hair decision. I almost started with this brilliant work by Jake Studios yesterday. Here's a 30-second time lapse for the piece mentioned on this episode. 22 editions left. So here it is, Jake Studios in the studio. And what a brilliant composition. And you have to actually really, pretty good draftsmanship. Look how balanced, just as a black and white work. And remember, I never showed it, I don't think. Maybe I've shown one in the past, Dan Control, where he started showing kind of like the wires of his work. And like that in itself, I don't know if he was posted on Rodeo. To me, these are works. It's the weird thing about digital. It's like, you know, you could, theoretically, this 30-second time lapse is a work. You know, so it's interesting, isn't it? Brilliant artist. My absolute pleasure, Jake Studios. So this is interesting. The art newspaper was Cimabue, the true father of the Italian Renaissance. They have restored Cimabue. New restoration reveals pivotal innovations. For those that don't know who Cimabue is, probably considered, I'd say, the founder, to a certain degree, of Italian painting. And in some respects, there are, you know, Italian painting is kind of seen, just historically, as kind of crucial, shall we say. Of course, you have, a little later, you get the oil painting from like the north, right? But nevertheless, so, you know, because you see the volume, you know, I think the so-called master of Giotto, I believe. So we'll look at a little bit of this. So the Louvre's conservation of La Maesta sheds new light on the painter's techniques and influences. Maesta, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So here is the restored version. Let me see if I can actually open image in new tab. So there you go. This is incredibly interesting. We're going to look at the original in a second. So you see the bright colors, looks pretty good, right? But it really recalls the Sistine Chapel way back in the 90s. When they restored that was hugely controversial. Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, where they cleaned it up. I'd argue the restoration won the day. Now, what's interesting about this is on the reptilian moment, or back to the reptilian moment, it's kind of interesting which kind of has more poetic impact. I would argue, and maybe I will change at some point, but at least in terms of the Virgin Mary here, I would argue the poetic impact, for whatever reason, of this older version, I would argue is actually more intense. Now, if this is the work, this is the work. And they don't really go into how they actually, are they adding paint in their restoration? Let's just look at a little bit of this. The painting has been transformed in a number of ways. Most immediately, the Maesta's colors have been revealed in their original glory. The dark cloak of the Virgin was found to be a vivid cobalt blue. The dull red of an apostle's cloak is now gleaming pink. So maybe this is the pink, right? This has dramatically altered understanding of Cimabue's early practice, Quote, what is fascinating is that art historians have previously framed this painting as typical of the supposed early phase of Cimabue, which they thought was a phase of dark painting. After the cleaning, we cannot say this anymore. Very interesting. And of course, and so what they're saying is, it's starting to look a little bit more like Giotto. Because, of course, Giotto has more volume, it's more colorful. Again, this kind of, Italian painting sort of thing. And so there is something to be said here. Isn't this interesting? Because this almost looks more what you'd call Byzantine, I think. That classic, gold background and like these muted colors. This tends to be how these paintings with gold backgrounds, Byzantine, I think is what you call them, paintings look like. But here we see almost, it becomes more of a revolution, one could argue, that Cimabue was up to. Now let's just see a little bit more of what they say here. But just as important as the insights gained into the subtlety and realism into which Cimabue rendered the human figure, something that has previously been used to separate Giotto's work from the master, Cimabue's pioneering portrayal of transparency, for example, is revealed in the way that the Christ's childlike leg is now visible through the bottom part of the robes, like over here. You see over here. Quote, it's also his way of shaping the bodies, end quote, Bull says, showing how on the child's foot he varied his brushstrokes, quote, just to give the feeling of lift. Just to give the feeling of it, to vary the brushstrokes. Interesting. This is also interesting. The restoration has revealed entirely new figures in the original frame's roundels. One roundel previously featured an image of a female figure. This is the unrestored. This is the restored. So you see how kind of controversial this could be. Once again depicts the Franciscan Saint Anthony of Padua. This is a female figure. You could argue the restoration here is a more the unrestored version is kind of more poetic again. Right? Almost like a better painting. This, just in this kind of little micro. So you see how it doesn't mean they shouldn't have restored it, but these are very controversial decisions. Here's some interesting writing in the textiles here. And just finally, do we even see that in, where is the writing in the textile? Maybe over here. You see in the chair? And then if we look at the original, it's just kind of harder to read. You can see it, but it's harder to read. So there, now is this, okay, so let's just look at the conclusion here. According to Boll, the exhibition will force us to, quote, completely review our vision of Italian painting of this time. Now, oftentimes these things are overstated, but a new look at Cimabue, the origins of Italian painting. This is at the Louvre, and I think it's there till May. And while much about Cimabue and his Maesta remain shrouded in mystery, one thing he adds has been made certain by its restoration. Quote, when you look at almost everything that people had said about the inventions of the Sienese painter Duccio of Giotto, we can see that actually Cimabue had already opened the path to these questions. Fascinating. Extraordinarily charming. I mean, these wings are always... they're gorgeous. Let's continue. This is an Italian website, which I translated using just Brave here. Cimabue arrives at the Louvre, a journey to the origins of Western painting. Just a couple of more details here. The Louvre pays homage to Cimabue with an exhibition that reveals unpublished details that emerged from the Restoration, rekindling the debate on the origins of the Renaissance and on the revolutionary role of the artist. Look at how spectacular that looks. Tempera on wood. So the Louvre has a Cimabue show. I've talked to someone, recently, can't remember, who was it? Where I was saying, Berlin's not exactly where the jet set goes. They'll go to Basel, they'll go to Paris, they'll go to London, but they don't really go to Berlin. They're not really, frankly, on the street. It's not the most welcoming place for people with tons of money. Like, it's not the most pro-business vibe on the street, shall we say, depending on where you are in the city, of course. So all to say, you want something that's kind of jet set, go see Cimabue in Paris. That's pretty jet set, in my humble estimation. For the first time in history, the Musée du Louvre of Paris dedicates the entire exposure or exhibition, this is translated, Cimabue, to Cimabue, one of the most influential artists of the 13th century, or really of all time. Born in 1240, died in 1302, and some considered to be the precursor of the Great Western Pictorial Revolution. I wouldn't even say the precursor. Like, he is the revolutionary here. Cimabue has long been observed by the fame of its students and successor primarily Giotto. However, the exhibition promises to bring light innovations so significant as to revive the debate on whether he is, in fact, the true father of the Italian Renaissance. So now here's an interesting final point to this. Do you notice how different this looks? And one of the important things that we have to also consider here is the impact of photography, right? Like, I can't even tell. Like, is this the... I guess this is... I can't even tell if this is the restored version or not. I assume it's not. But you see how the importance of photography, right? I made a whole series on this. It's called Related Images. And maybe I'll do one of these Cimabues. I mean, there's enough of them. I actually have another series that I love, which I need to make more of, called Composites, where I put them all as layers and then I reveal certain areas. So, excited about all of this stuff. Anyways, I think that's pretty much... So just more press here. Let's look at this. The exhibition path ends with Great One St. Francis receiving the Stigmata by Giotto. So, Giotto, together with Duccio, represents the generation of artists who, inspired by the pioneering language of Cimabue, who really lifted the works off of the canvas, so to speak. Created volume, I think is one way of putting it, would have made painting make an epical leap. This is, again, translated from Italian. But if so far traditional historiography had set the beginning of the Italian Renaissance in Giotto or later in Masaccio, the pictorial innovations of Cimabue, now more evident than ever, raise the question of who really deserves the title of founder of this extraordinary artistic season. Now, what's interesting is, I think this is all being overstated because I think it was already understood, frankly, that Cimabue was really kind of the set things off, push the stone down the mountain or the snowflake down the, creating the large snowball at the end, or however you want to describe it. So, of course, every artist bringing their own, Giotto bringing his own Duccio, El Duccio, as well as all of the others bringing their own, innovations to the table. Of course, Masaccio. Here's the Met. Interesting, Mourning Figures, possibly a copy after a fresco by Cimabue. And so maybe this is a work that has disappeared. See how beautiful this composition is? Again, you see the kind of this balance, this Renaissance, what do they call it? Contrapposto, the balance in the imbalance. It's balanced, but it's not like everything's symmetrical. Contrapposto, I believe, is how you'd call that. So this is from the Met. This is a 18th century artist, George Romney, British, and they're wondering at the Met, is this after Cimabue? It's quite a beautiful composition, and they probably don't know what the original is. They're assuming after Cimabue. Continuing on, JPEGs.fun, switching gears. Introducing the Frontrunner Showcase. In celebration of JPEG's Fun mainnet release, we partnered up with Few Collections. So we're going to see here another kick at the can, so to speak, to see if the crypto scene can really turn JPEGs into kind of meme madness here, meme coin madness, and if they can, they've been desperately trying to fuse them. So here's going to be another attempt here. So just more hype building for whatever this is going to be. So I'm kind of lightly excited, I have to say. Like, I'm curious about this, which is why I keep showing it. There it is. There is the countdown. 6 hours to go. That's today. Awesome. eBoy. More. So we have another. So pixel artist in print here. Signed. And I believe eBoy are two people, I believe. Rock Guy art print framed. So also for sale. Beautiful work. And this is, I think, Petsky Kola. I'm not sure if that is the person. It's in another language, but this is also pretty interesting work, as you see, kind of pixel art. in the physical. And yeah, so just interesting, as you see. Now, Element Lee, who also puts work in physical oftentimes, this is 400 by 400 pixels, and this looks like it is still pixel art. It almost looks like text, but it's not. Mass production. So beautiful work here by Element Lee to get us started. Here's another one. Look at all these kind of avant-garde pixel artists is really what I think we're looking at here, which is almost sounds like an oxymoron, you know, two different things put together. But that's because people think pixel art, they think gaming, right? They think kids. They think Minecraft. So here, above the tangible reality is the surreal of senses, cognition, and meaning. Art reveals that senses and meaning beyond material existence are also at the core of human life. As shown in surrealist art, reality is not necessarily visible, and hidden symbols and subconscious flows constitute a broader truth. So I love how sophisticated, frankly, this scene is, and look at how cool this is. This is like an avant-garde painting. So cool. Here's Cap'n on Rodeo. So more pixel art here to get us started, and here we see the cowboy. Here we see this interesting kind of composition here where you see what looks like a landscape, maybe this landscape again with this kind of sun, two suns or two moons or a sun and moon, this beautifully dithered sky, or however you put it. Look at how beautifully processed this is. And then for good measure, for contrast here, this kind of outer space design type thing here, beautifully kind of scrolling, cycling through the gradients here. 152 minted so far. I picked one up. This is on Rodeo. Beautiful, beautiful work by Cap'n. Here's another one, Figments, which is also Cap'n, The Great Equalizer. I don't think we saw this one. This is December 19th. And here you see, again, celebrating these wide pixels, these kind of 2x1 pixels, and just kind of a cool composition here, isn't it? Kind of space, technology, everything. Here is Kristen Roos, Portal Structure. So more, you know, here I'd call it, I guess you could call this pixel art, but you could also say vintage software. I call it retro tools, but vintage software, as Kristen Roos calls it, I think quite accurately. And here's a building, seemingly, portal structure, and here is the doorway here. Beautiful, nice little, you know, shadow here and everything. This is an edition of 10, 20 Tezos, only 2 sold. Now, this may have just been minted today. Today is January 4th, so just minted. And it may even, like if we hit refresh, there may be others. It is Saturday morning. Gio Mariani, Made in Times of Despair. So here, Gio Mariani, I don't know if this is a new one, but just more cool pixel art, right? So isn't it interesting? Mech.txt, it's like, because to a certain degree, I'm not even trying to make a pixel art show. I just realized I kind of made one. I'm just getting what's interesting, and I just kind of organized it together. Another cool thing about doing things daily here is there's going to be different kinds of observations that happen. Mech.txt, I'm not worthy. So I think this so there is almost like a reference to what looks like kind of almost like a 14th century Jesus here. And here in the middle of nature, and then this strong red. Mech's been using these red and blues, interestingly. We're all unworthy. So again, kind of a Christian-themed work, and what looks like a portrait of Jesus Christ with the red stripe going right across the eyes. Very interesting work, and I don't think any listed yet. Very interesting, I think, kind of a 2-piece series, seemingly. Here is Zesis Bliatkis with another super interesting work. Another interesting, I think, Microsoft Paint painting. So just continues to be interesting here. I'm not sure if this was minted anywhere. Here's one that came out December 11th that I'm not sure we covered, but I wanted to make sure. Cesar, still here. This is gorgeous. This is a gorgeous portrait. Like, even what is going on here? Is that, I guess that's just like a physical, almost looks like paint drips, but really done well. Sometimes it's tricky to use those paint drips and make it work. Cesar doing an outstanding job here. Beautiful portrait. You see object.com. You see a couple of UFOs. Beautiful work. edition of 100 for 2 Tezos, 90 left, so probably sold 100 already. This is Rat Cloak. This is December 18th. Acacia Still Smell in the Steppe. So kind of a dark work here in the steppe, in the steppes, in the steppe. So of course, Rat Cloak in Ukraine. So a skull here, playing with these kind of hard juxtapositions here, and everything. I think Photoshop, beautifully rendered work. The color always outstanding here from Rat Cloak, and Photoshop brushes. And so a dark work here, edition of 10, and selling out at 20 Tezos each. Excellent work there. Here's Walk. Look at this. Drop. So this is a digital artwork by Walk, who of course uses a lot of spray, but doing the digital version here of spray paint works. Not sure if this oftentimes there will be a reference here. This is only 5 Tezos, still available. That's a nice one. Continuing on, here is Time, also known as Santiago, just a nice, beautiful abstract here in this series. We've seen several. Just broken up, and just a cool digital abstract there. Here's Zozo. Let's see if we can get this playing. Just awesome. It's like the tree of life. So more beautiful work by Zuozo, edition of 15, 8 Tezos each, and 3 gone already, and just listed yesterday. Look at how beautiful that is as a still. Here is Nuv 1914, edition of 1, sold to Marcel Munteanu for 15 Tezos. So back to the one of ones here for Nuv 1914. And playing with this very interesting experimentation as usual, always challenging, right? Interesting kind of structure, like you see again, this kind of dual structure that we often see with Nuv 1914's work. Here's some more experimentation by Nuv. This is on Rodeo. So as you see here, 20 minted so far. I think I minted all of these, actually. There are 3. And here, look at that. It's important. You see the importance of opening it in a new tab here. Discover all sorts of things, as you see up here. This interesting negative space at the top. Interesting treatment. Such an interesting artist. Here's Victor Acevedo. This is December 13th, A Glass of Wine with Harry. Very interesting work. Kind of looks like Photoshop, if I had to venture a guess. And of course, Victor Acevedo was on the Spaces. I'm going to bring him back, actually, in not this week, but the following week. We're going to hear back from Victor Acevedo. Beautiful work here. This is edition of 10, and this is, I believe, it's dedicated to my friend Harry Robinson. This is the original image that spawned the 2024 remix called The Geometric Portrait of Harry Robinson. So remixing and everything. So a pioneer of digital art here. Victor Acevedo, 75 Tezos, still available. Renki, Tokusawa. So more cool Renki. This is in black and white. This is kind of the latest explorations by Renki with this kind of morphine, digitalia, so to speak. Tokusawa, edition of 1, not listed. Here's Elby. New Year, same old me. Bit of humor and these cool kind of pop references here. Cool composition. Just everything kind of spaced out, glitched out. Happy 2025. Very cool work. Edition of 25. And they are beginning to go. Here's Rune Christensen as we move into the physicals. Beautiful work with Kristen Hilarity Gallery and Hagged Contemporary. So this is a thing, where is Hagged Contemporary? That's in Germany as well. Because often how I've heard it goes, this is in Denmark. There we go. Because how it goes oftentimes in contemporary art world is at least every city you can have a different gallery in theory. Maybe that'd be annoying for the gallery if you set up in Leipzig, which is nearby Berlin, and then you have a different gallery. So maybe it's kind of country oriented a little bit, I suspect. But I've been told basically you can have a different gallery for each city in theory. Interesting. Beautiful work. Oil and pastel, just a great artist. Bobici Mattia, this is a 2025 Cyborg Barbarian. And it's interesting to see, we've looked at probably 100 works by this artist. This is 2025. One of my faves. This looks, you see how minimal it is? And it's like, there's something to be said for this. This is beautiful. And after you see all the other works, you're like, ooh, this minimal one, it's looser. It's kind of rougher. Impressive. Craig Barak, Cafeteria. This is a beautiful image too. Maybe I've heard of this artist before, but I thought just a kind of a really cool, moody, almost like a modern Hopper kind of piece here. Very cool work. Oil on linen, 32 by 46. And that is your show, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. We are at 45 minutes. I'm still trying to get it 35, 30. Hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, take care.